Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Chris Sims from ComicsAlliance.com, and this is Here's the Thing. And for this week's show, we have another question from a viewer. Thank you, Jocelyn. This one comes from Joe Hunter on Twitter, Joe_Hunter, and he would like to hear more about Hawkman. Guys, Hawkman sucks. Hawkman sucks real bad. I would venture to say that he is the worst of the DC characters still kicking around from the Golden Age. Which is weird, because he shouldn't be, right? He's got a really cool look. He looks awesome. He's got the cool helmet with the feathers. I will respect any superhero who goes into battle supervillains like flying gorillas and guys with names like the Sin Eater and doesn't even wear a shirt. Just straight up straps it on and is ready to go. That's a cool dude, in theory. In practice, it doesn't really work out that way, and I'm not sure why. See, here's the thing about Hawkman. He should be cool, right? We can all agree that. He's got a good look, he's got a cool hook, or 2, or 5, or 10, we'll get back to that in a second. And there's that famous Kyle Baker quote about how Hawkman hits things with a mace, so you have to give him problems that can be solved by hitting things with a mace. If they had done that with Hawkman all along, he'd be great. He would be fantastic. But they didn't. And I think the problem is that Hawkman has one superpower. When you really get down to it, one power. And that power is the power that Superman has. You're never going to beat that guy. You're never going to be cooler than Superman. Like, I mean, you might be cooler than Superman. You could be Batman, or Snake Eyes, or Jughead, but you're never going to be more important and more relevant than Superman, in theory. And Superman's whole deal is that he flies. Like, you will believe a man can fly, right? That's the whole Superman thing. It's his one big power. You know, you can talk about being bulletproof and, you know, standing in front of the bullets and protecting Lois Lane, and the heat vision is cool, and the super strength is obviously cool, but when you think about Superman, you know, it's a bird, it's a plane, he's up in the sky, he's flying, he's leaping tall buildings in a single bound. That's all Hawkman does. And he needs a pair of wings to do it. Like, he can't even do it. He's just got the wings. I think that's the core problem. Like, the mace stuff is really great. And if you read Kyle Baker's Hawkman story that ran in Wednesday Comics, it's fun. Because Baker does exactly what he says he's going to do. He gives Hawkman problems that you can solve by hitting them with a mace. And those problems are dinosaurs. And again, shirtless dude fighting dinosaurs with a mace, I'm down. I'm there. Like, Kyle Baker, I'm in anyway. He's amazing. He's one of my favorite creators. But dinosaur combat, shirtless dinosaur combat, that's got Chris Sims written all over it. But Hawkman, as he goes throughout history, it seems like they try to make up for him sort of duplicating Superman's power. I think it's kind of the same problem you get with the Martian Manhunter. Another dude who just puts on some straps and a cape and goes, doesn't bother to wear a shirt at all. His powers are Superman's powers. Plus he can turn invisible and read your mind and walk through walls. Like, in theory, that dude should be the boss of the DC universe, but he's not. Because he's not Superman. He's never going to be Superman. Grant Morrison had a really good idea with Martian Manhunter to make him the Superman of everywhere that wasn't America. Like, every other country, while Superman was protecting us here in America, Martian Manhunter had the time to just go out and be a superhero all over the world. He had multiple secret identities in multiple countries. Interestingly enough, there's an issue, I think, that was scripted by Mark Miller, where the Martian Manhunter's secret identity in Japan was that he was a woman with long black hair named Rei Hino, which is Sailor Mars' name. So, in the DC universe, Sailor Mars was the Martian Manhunter. That's a quick aside for you. But with Hawkman, the flying thing is all he's got. And not only can Superman do that, everybody can do that. 90% of superhero characters, their powers are flight and. Like, especially when you get to the 80s and 90s, and they're just creating characters who can fly and have power blasts. That's all they do. Like, you get those Marvel Universe trading cards, and flight and, invulnerability, flight and heat vision, flight and power blast from their hands. Maybe a third Summers brother. So I think they try to spice it up a little bit. But they go way too far. The core concept of Hawkman As I understand it, and I could be wrong about this, because there's so much to get through, the core concept of Hawkman is that he's an archaeologist who finds a crashed spaceship. And that spaceship has the nth metal in it. And the nth metal lets him fly, the wings let him control his flight. So he becomes a Hawk-themed superhero, and a Hawk-themed Avenger for Justice. Now, maybe the space stuff didn't come until later. Maybe the Egyptian reincarnated prince stuff came in first. Again, I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter, because it's all there at the same time. You get to the Silver Age, and instead of just being Carter Hall, the archaeologist who finds the crashed spaceship in a pyramid, he becomes a Thanagarian space cop and comes to Earth and fights crime. And the Thanagarian space cops have a uniform that does not require a shirt, but does require wings and a helmet. So they obviously have their priorities straight. In theory, this is no more complex than Green Lantern, right? Like, Green Lantern, Alan Scott was a dude who found a meteorite, carved it into a lantern, and then carved it into a ring, and went and fought a swamp zombie. And that's great. I love Alan Scott Green Lantern. Like, I love a lot of the Golden Age heroes. I love Golden Age Flash, Golden Age Green Lantern. The Spectre, the crooked cop who gets possessed by the literal wrath of God and turns people into weird things to give them ironic punishments. That dude's awesome. But anyway, in theory, Hawkman being a space cop is no more complicated than Hal Jordan being a space cop. Because that's what Hal Jordan is. When the 50s hit and you get the Silver Age Flash and the Silver Age Green Lantern, Flash's origin is more or less the same. Jay Garrick inhales hard water fumes and gets super speed powers. Barry Allen gets hit by chemicals that got struck by lightning. He gets super speed powers. It's kind of the same thing, right? They're both scientists. They both end up running fast. They both have weird outfits with wings in weird places. Not where the wings should be, which is where Hawkman's are. But Green Lantern takes that idea of, dude finds a meteorite, makes a ring out of it, no real explanation. Also, you can hit him with a baseball bat. And he becomes a space cop. Space cop with a wishing ring. That's the way to sum it up. So in theory, that's not really more complicated than Hawkman. In fact, it's actually way more complicated. Because there's Oa, there's Guardians, there's the Quardians, there's Sinestro, there's the Yellow Rings, there's eventually the Million Rings, but that's way down the line, and Hawkman's going to get a lot more complicated before that comes in. There's all this stuff about Hal Jordan. There's 3,600 of them. There's aliens. There's really only one Hawkman. Like, at most, there's Hawkman and the guys from Thanagar. But then they try to put it all together, where there's Carter Hall, there's Katar Hall, with an O, who is the space cop. And there's also Prince Khufu, who Katar Hall and Carter Hall may be the reincarnation of. There's space stuff, there's weird ancient Egyptian stuff, there's multiple genres going on here. There's fantasy stuff, there's sci-fi stuff. It's all happening at once. It's all really weird. And it's too much. It breaks it. Because at the end of the day, you've got a guy who flies and hits things with a mace. And you don't really need to heap on a complex reason for that. You just put a dinosaur in front of him. You hit it. And the dinosaur gets knocked out. That's all you need. And then it gets more complicated. Because the 80s hit. And what the 80s do is 1986, everything gets thrown away. Except for the stuff we like. We keep Batman. We keep Superman mostly intact. We keep Hal Jordan mostly intact. There's a Flash legacy that's kept mostly intact, even though Barry Allen dies in Crisis. Wally West is a character who dates back to 1955, so he's still around. That legacy is still around. A lot of stuff hangs out. And the interesting thing is that a lot of it just gets smoothed over. Stuff from the Golden Age and Silver Age gets merged. Black Canary is one of them, because there was a Golden Age Black Canary who became the Silver Age Black Canary when she crossed over from Earth 2 and started dating Green Arrow. And that's really complicated. But they smooth it over, and they just say, okay, there were two Black Canaries. There was a Black Canary in the Golden Age, and her daughter became Black Canary now. Simple. Smooths it out. I think that's what they try to do with Hawkman, and it doesn't work. Because suddenly Hawkman is a ninja. A Native American ninja. Who may also have ties to space. And all the Carter Hall and Katar Hall stuff gets dealt with in Hawkworld, which is an increasingly complicated book. John Ostrander did Hawkworld. John Ostrander is one of my favorite writers. John Ostrander did Suicide Squad. It was great. But he gets his hands on Hawkman, and I don't know what happens. Tim Truman does Hawkworld. Tim Truman's great. Have you read his Conan stuff? It's amazing. It doesn't work. So you've got all this different Hawkman stuff. You had the Egyptian artifact. You had the pulp adventurer stuff in the Golden Age, right? The archaeologist who unearths the secret power from an Egyptian tomb. You had the space stuff of the 50s, the space cop who comes to Earth and fights flying gorillas. Now you have the gritty urban crime of Ninja Hawkman. And there's other stuff going on too. And they want to keep it all. They want to keep the Egyptian stuff and the Thanagar stuff. But they can't really figure out how to make it work. Then you get Geoff Johns. Now, I'm not a huge Geoff Johns fan, especially of his more recent stuff. I don't care for Justice League. I am looking forward to his Superman run, because I hope it's going to be good, because he did some really good Superman stories. But aside from Stars and Stripe, which was the first comic he did at DC, and which was an amazing all-ages book about a teen girl superhero who was a legacy character, which is the thing that I really love about the DC universe, is how many legacy characters there are. Aside from that, Geoff Johns' best work as a superhero comics creator was Hawkman. Because he tried to smooth it out, and it worked for the first time. It was all reincarnation. All the Hawkman stuff that you read or didn't read or liked or didn't like, it all happened, but it all happened to the same guy. Prince Khufu was reincarnated as Carter Hall. Carter Hall was reincarnated as Qatar Hall. It all happened. It was all part of the same thing. And they acknowledged that it was weird, and they acknowledged, okay, all this history happened and it's still there, but we're just going to explain it really quickly and then move away from it, and we'll get some new adventures. So you had a character who had the awareness of a character who had been around for a long time. You had a character who had the awareness that you would get from like a long-time veteran of this long-standing DC universe, this 70-year DC universe that dates back to the 30s and the 40s when all those Golden Age characters started. But you had a character who was constantly confronted with having to do things in new ways. And it really works well. He's on that book for 25 issues, and they're really solid. They are very entertaining. One additional thing about Hawkman that I never understood why he was the conservative counterpoint to Green Arrow in the Justice League. Are Egyptian alien princes notably conservative? I don't know. Was he from the South? From South Egypt? One of the southern kingdoms? I don't know. No idea. Anyway. Now, the problem with all that is that it still has all that baggage. Like, even if you smooth it over, even if you just say, hey, all this happened, it's still confusing to get through. Even if you're just like, yeah, same guy, just reincarnated over and over. Wandering spirit. It's still weird. And especially when you bring in Hawkgirl. And Hawkgirl is his destined lover. Which is in a weird situation. It allows for a lot of romantic tension, which is how Johns used it in that run. Which was very entertaining, actually. But it's complicated. And if you can't really explain somebody in a couple sentences, without getting into specifics, then you lose a lot. You lose a lot of that hook. Hawkman doesn't have a hook. Like Batman. Parents killed in an alley, swore to fight crime, trained to be a ninja, now he fights crazy people who come out of an asylum to rob banks. That's quick. That more or less gets it. You can get into a lot more specific stuff, but that gets it, Superman. Oh, he's an alien from a planet that exploded. His parents wanted him to live. They sent him to Earth. He was raised by the nicest people in Kansas, and now he uses his powers to protect us. Simple. Flash, runs really fast. That's really all there is to that guy. Runs really fast. Hawkman, I don't know why he does it. I don't know why he does stuff. Hawkman is one of the first characters that feels like he's created just to be a superhero, because superheroes are popular. There's no real motivation, He just finds the wings. Now he's a superhero. The weird thing about all this is that Hawkgirl really works well. And I specifically mean the Hawkgirl who was on the Justice League cartoon. She is a really great character with a really great hook. She's a renegade space cop who's kind of trapped on Earth and has to deal with that now. Earth is the subject of all these threats, all these alien threats. Whether or not she's the leading edge of an invading Thanagarian force, she's assigned to Earth to deal with it all because Earth is a danger to the galaxy. And in that respect, it makes her a very interesting counterpoint to Green Lantern, John Stewart on the series. And the reason it works is because they're a classic buddy cop story. John Stewart on Green Lantern, or John Stewart on Justice League, the cartoon, he was the by-the-book cop. He was John Stewart, U.S. Marine Corps. He used the power beams and the shields. That's all he used. Very straightforward, very direct. Hawkgirl was the character who hits things with a mace to solve her problems. That was what they went with for her. And like I said, it was great. When that's what Hawkman does, when that's what Hawkgirl does, it's fantastic. And her mace looked awesome on TV because it was electric. She was like their Thor. She was from this alien world that she wanted to go back to, but she couldn't. She was stuck on Earth, and now she was just going to beat things with a mace till she was done with her job. That's great. And so you get the romance between those two characters, and it's really fun because they come from that same background. They come from that same background of being space cops that are assigned to Earth because Earth causes all kinds of troubles. We cause a lot of trouble, Earth, in the DC universe. So she was the very pared down, simplified version of that character. Now, I'm not too familiar with the Hawkman that we have now, the New 52 Hawkman. I know that he showed up in The Authority. And that's about all I know. That's weird. And this has been Here's the Thing. If you'd like me to talk about a character and sort of explain him, or if you have a question about comics or comics culture, just let me know. Shoot me a tweet on Twitter. It's at the ISB, or leave a comment at comicsalliance.com. And have a great week, everybody. We'll be back next week with another episode of Here's the Thing.